So lawmakers in Congress have just announced a brand new deadline to pass a new stopgap funding bill to prevent a government shutdown in a few weeks. This could affect millions of people. Social Security benefits may see a pause in their benefits, everybody. And remember, the whole goal of this channel is to provide you with the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check information. So you want to continue watching this video to find out the latest stimulus news. So congressional leaders are moving toward passing a stopgap bill through March 11th to prevent a government shutdown, everybody. That comes as negotiations continue on a full funding deal. House Appropriations Chair Rosa DeLauro introduced a 3-week funding bill today, calling it an effort to keep the federal government up and running while Congress completes the most important work. And the House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said the House Representatives will likely pass a continuing resolution this week to buy some time. According to Steny Hoyer, negotiations are very vigorous, and I think that we're going to get an agreement both on a top line, how much spending is going to be, and how much it will be spent. But it's not there yet, so he does expect to do a continuing resolution, everybody. And one Senate Appropriations Chairman told multiple sources that there's still time and we're still talking. So Congress could be barreling toward another government shutdown very soon, if Republicans and Democrats don't pass a bill to fund the government by then. Now, this is not the first time the government has shut down because of Congress's inability to negotiate a funding package. The last time the government shut down was in December 2018, and that's a standoff that ended in January 2019 after the former president conceded to a funding package. And a lot of details are still up in the air on how the government shutdown could play out. Now, there are specific plans set by the government that include information on how many employees would get furloughed, which employees are essential and would work without pay, how long it would take to wind down operations in hours before a shutdown, and what activities came to a halt. Now, some departments like the Department of Defense, the State Department, and the Department of Labor need at least half a day to prepare for a shutdown. Now, I know many of you are worried about Social Security benefits, and I know many of you are wondering whether you will still receive your Social Security check if there's a shutdown. Well, yes, Social Security benefits will continue to go out in the government shutdown. That's because Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are among the mandatory spending that is not subject to annual appropriations from Congress. So while Social Security checks will continue to be sent out, some related services could be impacted. For example, benefit verification and the issuance of new Social Security cards would stop. When it comes to Social Security checks, the bigger looming threat is the debt limit. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen suggested that nearly 50 million seniors could stop receiving Social Security checks for a time. If Congress fails to raise or suspend the debt ceiling, that will happen. She warned that if the debt limit is not raised, the U.S. would be impaired, and our country would likely face a financial crisis and economic recession. And a government shutdown would also not affect food stamps, at least initially. The Department of Agriculture, which is responsible for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, has laid out in its updated shutdown contingency plan that those programs should continue operations during a lapse in appropriations. So the last partial government shutdown, which started in December 2018 and continued into January 2019, was the longest in U.S. history. During that time, around 800,000 federal workers were furloughed, with some deemed essential and having to work without. What do you think is going to happen now, everybody? Will President Biden get this job done? Tell me in the comments below.
Okay, I'm proud to be joined by our leadership team of Senators Durbin, Murray, and Stabenow. So we had a great lunch today, really a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of new ideas on focusing on lowering costs for working families. Whether it's child care or prescription drugs or semiconductor chips or filling up the gas pump, what's on the dining table, cost of food, we're coming up with solutions to address these issues. That's the big difference between Democrats and Republicans when it comes to lowering people's costs. We have real answers. They don't. They just attack. And why don't they have answers? Because much of the time it goes after the special interests that support them. So they don't want to deal with the oil companies or the meatpacking companies or the shipping monopolies. So we are focused on getting costs down, and you're going to see a lot of activity in March from us on that issue. Now, let's not forget, we're a very strong economy. In President Biden's first year, the economy added 6.6 million new jobs, the most ever in a president's first year. But we're not stopping there. Now that wages are going up, we want to make sure costs go down so the average person has more money in her or his pocket. And that's what our whole lunch was about, or most of our lunch was about today. Various members came up with different ideas, and we're going to focus and we're going to come up with caucus agreement on those ideas. Not everyone will agree with each idea, but there'll be large buy-in, and you'll hear a lot about this from us as we move on. And one of the ways we're reducing costs, of course, is the competition bill to relieve U.S. supply chains. That was bipartisan. And on any of these cost-saving bills, we'll welcome Republicans joining us. If we can get 60 votes on a bunch of them, that's fine. But when we can't, we're still going to move forward. And you'll see some votes on the floor on these as well. We've been pushing for years, for instance, to lower the cost of prescription drugs. We think it's an outrage that insulin should cost $600 per month rather than $35 a month. And we're working with Republicans on antitrust bills to increase competition. So as I said, some will be partisan, some will be bipartisan, but we have solutions, and we're going to focus like a laser on reducing costs. The new proposals and new ideas keep coming, and we're going to propose legislation, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to go back to our state.
You know, this last year, it really was a headline of Democrats deliver, but there's more to do, and that's what we're focused on for the coming year as it relates to the costs that families are feeling every single day. And there's no question that our country still faces supply chain challenges. I certainly from Michigan can speak about that and what that means, and everything that we buy in terms of cars and appliances and every part of the economy, and we are laser focused on addressing that, and the increased costs due to COVID. And over again, when we look at what has happened when you shut the economy down in the United States and globally, the ripple effect is in every part of our lives. And so we have been laser focused and will continue to be laser focused in addressing that. And Republicans have done nothing to lower costs. They have proposed nothing to lower costs. We've worked with President Biden to pass the American Rescue Plan that put shots in people's arms, to create safety for them, for their family, to get kids back in school. When the president took office, there were 46% of the children in America in school. Now it's 98%. That's a big difference, and we understand the challenges families still face under COVID, but it's safer. Children are back and learning in the classroom. And we've gotten our economy moving in the fastest, strongest way since 1984. It is amazing, the underlying strength, even when we've seen costs go up, which are very real.